Welcome to Beyond the Pattern, Life and Leadership Unlocked. I'm your host, Bukola, keynote speaker, HR strategist, and leadership coach with over 20 years of experience supporting leaders through growth and transition. I'm also a first-generation Nigerian American. My name, Bukola, means added to the greatness in Yoruba, and this podcast is one way I live that out. We're living in a time of constant acceleration. AI, automation, and performance culture push us to go faster and do more. But speed isn't the same as wisdom, and going fast doesn't mean we're moving forward. That's why I created this space to reclaim the human side of leadership. If you want to stay connected, be sure to follow the show and hit subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you won't miss any episode when it drops every other week. Whether this is your first time listening or you've been following since day one, I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Bukola. I'm in Utah this week speaking about all things leadership. And since I'm still on East Coast time, I woke up way early before the sun. I took a long walk to take in that beautiful Utah scenery. Then I figured, while it's quiet, I'd like to check in with you. I'm really excited about this space we're creating for leaders, change makers, and people in transition, especially if you found yourself in a cycle or repeating a pattern that no longer works. Maybe it's burnout, maybe it's overthinking, maybe it's always being the strong one. Whatever it is, you're ready for something different. You're ready to shift. Last time we talked about seeing the pattern, but this time we're going deeper because recognizing the pattern is only half the battle. To truly shift it, you have to hear the lesson underneath it. Lessons tend to whisper until we stop moving fast enough to hear them. That's something I've learned again and again, both personally and in my coaching work. So let me introduce you to someone I've worked with. Her name is Karen. Karen was referred to me by a colleague. She was sharp, experienced, and well-liked. She was leading a solid team, but recently she'd been getting feedback from an internal culture survey that something was off. Her team felt distant from her, disconnected. Karen came to me frustrated. She didn't understand it. She said, "I've been holding it down, Bukola. I've covered open roles, staying late, juggled everything without complaining. What more do they want from me?" And that's where we began. As we talked, she opened up about more than just work. She mentioned a shift in her relationship with a close friend, some tension with her boyfriend, and somewhere in the middle of that, she said something that caught my attention. "I've always been the one to take care of all things at work, on the team, even my family growing up." That was the pattern. But instead of naming it outright, I asked, "What do you love about leadership the most, and what drew you to it in the first place? And where does your support come from today, Karen?" She paused, then said, "I don't know. I've always just figured it out." Then I asked her, "What happens when you stop anticipating everyone else's needs?" That's when it clicked. She started connecting the dots. In high school, she was a student athlete, captain of every team. People trusted her to carry the load, and she was praised for it. Coaches, teachers, even her parents told her she was dependable. And she was. That became her identity, though, her comfort zone. And now that same habit was creating distance between her and her team, and she wasn't giving them room to step up because she was busy carrying it all. And here's where science backs it up. Neuroscience tells us the brain loves efficiency. Once a behavior brings reward, praise, results, control, it gets hardwired. It becomes what researchers call a default loop. It feels natural, automatic, even familiar. Just like brushing your teeth, you don't stop to think, which hand do I use? Where's the toothbrush? You just do it. The brain conserves energy by repeating what worked before. And the same thing happens with our emotional patterns. We lead from habit, not reflection. That's not just behavior, it's biology. And the stakes, they're real. According to Deloitte's 2023 Human Capital Trends Report, 59% of organizations say their leaders lack the soft skills. That's emotional intelligence, communication, and adaptability. They lack the soft skills needed to meet the demands of today's workforce. That's not fluff. That's business impact. Soft skills are strategy, especially in moments of change. H, hear the lesson. So what does it mean to hear the lesson? It means pausing long enough to ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? Not just what's wrong, but what's familiar. What loop might I be caught in again? For Karen, the lesson wasn't that she was a bad leader. The lesson was that what once earned her trust, over functioning, anticipating, controlling, was now getting in the way of building trust. Patterns formed in comfort can still keep us stuck. And sometimes the pattern doesn't break until you do. This is where things get tender. Because for many of us, the lesson has already tried to come through, maybe more than once. We just weren't ready. That's the thing about growth. Lessons tend to whisper before they shout. They show up subtly in a colleague's feedback, in a partner's silence, in our own exhaustion. And when we're not ready to hear them, we brush them off. They don't understand me. This is just a rough patch. I'm fine. Until the stakes get too high to ignore. Until the cost of staying in the pattern outweighs the fear of changing it. So let's go ahead and do a wrap up. Talk about action steps. So with Karen, I asked, what's one thing coming up on your calendar where you could try something different? What might it look like to not take the lead for once? If you created more space, who might you surprise? Then I gave her time to reflect, and I asked one more. When you think about everything we've talked about, your team, your habits, your values, what upcoming moment could you use to try something different? She chose an upcoming team planning session. She made the conscious decision to ask more questions than answers, to invite more voices into the room, to listen instead of preparing the solution in advance. A few weeks later, she followed up. Not only did the session go better, one of her quieter team members shared an idea that's now being tested across the region. That's what happens when you shift. The team starts to shift too. And over time, more signs showed the team was turning a corner. Fewer last-minute escalations, a drop in complaints, and her direct reports were asking more questions and offering more solutions, unprompted. So let's break this down. Karen's pattern was shaped in comfort, but the lesson came through intention. When she slowed down enough to hear it, she could finally choose something different. That's the H in the shift framework. Hear the lesson. Not just noticing the behavior, but understanding what it's trying to show you. So let's go ahead and end with the recap and reflection. So here's what I want you to take away today. 1, patterns don't always come from pain. Sometimes they come from praise. 2, being the strong one might have earned you trust, but now it might be costing you connection. 3, the brain will repeat whatever gets rewarded until you interrupt the loop. 4 is hearing the lesson requires slowing down, listening in, and asking different questions. And then 5, finally, the moment you notice the pattern is the moment you take back your power. I'll say it again. The moment you notice the pattern, it's the moment you take back your power. So now your turn. What lesson has been trying to get your attention lately? What's one situation coming up where you could approach things differently? And are you willing to hear the lesson before it shouts? Let me know. Let me know what comes up for you. You can DM me on LinkedIn or tag me with your thoughts. I'd love to hear how this landed. And feel free to reach out to me on bukolagantala.com. Thanks for spending time with me today. See you next time when we move into the I in the shift framework, and that's investigate the impact. That's all I got. Have a good week, everyone. If this episode resonated, I'd love to hear from you. You can text or leave a voicemail at 404-828-0279. That's 404-828-0279. Or you can visit me at bukolagantala.com to send in a question, share your story, or explore coaching and speaking services. Whether you're leading a team or learning to lead yourself, I'm honored to be on this journey with you. And if you haven't already, hit follow or subscribe so we can keep growing together.